Ambassador Zexthari's four eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at the holographic display floating before the Galactic Council. The data streams showed impossible readings from the third planet of the Sol system, readings so extreme that her xenobiology team had run the analysis 17 times, certain there must be an error. Esteemed council members, her voice trembled through the translation matrix, barely maintaining diplomatic composure. I regret to inform you that our xenobiology team has made a deeply disturbing discovery about the species calling themselves humans. The massive chamber fell silent. Representatives from 1,200 civilized worlds turned their attention to the Vorthan ambassador, their various appendages, tentacles, wings, crystalline formations rustling with nervous energy. Even the ethereal thought clouds seemed to pulse with unease. The planet they call Earth, Zexthari continued, her tentacles coiling with anxiety, has been classified as a Class 12 death world. The chamber erupted. Gasps and horrified clicks echoed through the vast space. Class 12 was purely theoretical. No known species had ever survived on anything above Class 8, and even those worlds were considered uninhabitable by galactic standards. The atmospheric composition alone should have killed them, she explained, manipulating the hologram to show Earth's violent weather patterns. Hurricanes that could level cities, tornadoes that carved destruction across continents, lightning storms that split the sky. Oxygen levels at 21%, highly combustible and toxic to most known life. Their gravity is 3 times galactic standard. The planet experiences regular seismic activity, devastating storms, volcanic eruptions, and temperature variations that would flash freeze or incinerate most of our member species within minutes. Council Leader Morphton, his massive crystalline form pulsing with deep concern, leaned forward on his hover platform. And yet, they thrive? Worse, Honored Leader, they've turned these death conditions into recreation. The display shifted to show humans surfing tsunamis, climbing mountains in sub-zero temperatures, diving into crushing ocean depths, and leaping from aircraft with nothing but fabric wings. They call it extreme sports. They seek out danger for pleasure. The chamber erupted in terrified chatter. The Galactic Council had encountered over 3,000 species across the galaxy, but never one that treated planetary-scale disasters as entertainment. There's more, Zexthari said, her voice barely above a whisper. They're asking for membership in the Galactic Council. They want to leave their world and explore the galaxy. The emergency session had been called within hours of Zexthari's terrifying revelation. Council Leader Morphton's crystalline form flickered with stress patterns as he struggled to maintain order, his harmonic voice barely cutting through the cacophony of terrified representatives from across the galaxy. "We cannot allow Deathworlders into civilized space," screeched Ambassador Clicktar, her 6-limbed insectoid form vibrating with such agitation that her translators struggled to keep pace. "My people evolved on Paradise 7, where the most dangerous creature is roughly equivalent to what humans call a butterfly, and even those make our children cry. If these monsters can survive in conditions that would literally liquefy our bodies, what might they do to us when they're bored?" Ambassador Groon of the Peaceful Collective, his massive cetacean-like form undulating with distress, projected his thoughts directly into the chamber's collective consciousness. The Vorthon's biological analysis indicates that humans possess something called adrenaline, a combat stimulant their bodies produce automatically when threatened. They literally become stronger, faster, and more aggressive when you try to hurt them. It's like they evolved specifically to turn attempted murder into a power-up. Furthermore, added the ethereal representative from the thought clouds, their gaseous form swirling with agitated patterns, their psychological profiles are deeply disturbing. They form what they call emotional attachments to other species, including ones they've never met, and will fight to the death to protect them. They call it love and loyalty. Such irrational behavior makes them completely unpredictable in any logical scenario. Zexthari manipulated her datapad with trembling tentacles, bringing up even more horrifying evidence. Their evolutionary history reads like a catalog of extinction events: ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, gamma-ray bursts, and plagues that would have ended any rational species. Instead of being weakened by these planetary catastrophes, they've somehow grown stronger with each one. They've weaponized everything from their primitive nuclear technology to their own cellular biology. Their own biology? Council Leader Morphkin whispered, his crystalline structure dimming with dread. Yes, Honored Leader, they practice something called martial arts, systematically turning their bodies into living weapons. They can kill with their bare appendages, and they teach these techniques to their offspring as cultural enrichment. The chamber fell into stunned silence, broken only by the nervous chittering of the insectoid delegates. Finally, Ambassador Trillex of the Merchant Federation, his multiple eye stalks swiveling nervously, spoke up. Perhaps we're being hasty. If they're truly this formidable, wouldn't it be strategically better to have them as allies rather than, well, rather than whatever they become if we refuse them? Allies? Kliktar shrieked, her wings buzzing in panic. They're requesting permission to establish colonies throughout the galaxy. They want to spread across the stars like some kind of civilized plague. The real question, Morphton said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of galactic responsibility, is whether we can actually stop them if they decide to leave their world anyway. Allies? Kliktar shrieked, her wings buzzing in panic. They're requesting permission to establish colonies throughout the galaxy. They want to spread across the stars like some kind of civilized plague. The real question, Morphton said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of galactic responsibility, is whether we can actually stop them if they decide to leave their world anyway. 3 days later, the impossible happened with all the subtlety of a stellar collision. A human vessel materialized at the edge of Galactic Council space, its arrival detected by defense networks across 17 sectors simultaneously. The ship broadcasted a simple message in perfect galactic standard, a language that should have taken decades to master. Earth delegation requesting permission to address the Council. The vessel itself was a testament to terrifying efficiency. Where other species built ships of elegant curves, graceful sweeping lines, and artistic beauty that reflected their civilized nature, the humans had constructed something that looked like it was designed by predators for predators. Angular, heavily armored, and bristling with technology that Council sensors couldn't even begin to categorize. How did they learn our language so quickly? Ambassador Zexthari asked, her tentacles writhing with increasing anxiety. Our linguistic analysis suggested it would take them at least 50 standard years to achieve basic communication. More disturbingly, added Kliktar, her compound eyes reflecting the ship's ominous silhouette, how did they develop faster-than-light travel so rapidly? According to our most optimistic technological projections, it should have taken them centuries to achieve interstellar capability. The answer came when the human delegation transported directly into the Council chamber. Another impossibility, since the chamber's shielding should have prevented any unauthorized matter transmission. The lead figure was tall, bipedal, and walked with the confident, measured stride of an apex predator surveying its territory. Despite the Council's environmental controls being carefully calibrated to accommodate the widest possible range of member species, the humans seemed perfectly comfortable in conditions that represented a compromise between hundreds of different atmospheric requirements. "Greetings, esteemed Council," the human said, her voice carrying clearly throughout the vast chamber without any artificial amplification. Another subtle demonstration of Deathworld adaptations, since most Council species required technological assistance to project their voices in such a large space. "I am Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Alliance." She was accompanied by 2 others, a male whose visible cybernetic implants suggested humans had already begun augmenting their already formidable biology, and a female whose muscle definition was clearly visible even through her formal diplomatic attire, radiating the kind of controlled strength that made predators recognizable to prey species. "We come seeking membership in the Galactic Council," Captain Chen continued, with diplomatic precision, "and the opportunity to contribute to the peaceful exploration and development of the galaxy." Ambassador Morphton struggled to maintain his composure, his crystalline form flickering with patterns that indicated barely controlled panic. "Captain Chen, the Council has been conducting extensive deliberations regarding your species membership application. We have significant concerns about your planet's environmental classification." "Ah, you mean the Class 12 Deathworld designation." Chen smiled, revealing rows of sharp white teeth that had clearly evolved for tearing flesh. "Yes, we accessed that information from your public databases. Quite flattering, actually. We prefer to think of Earth as character building." The casual dismissal of their terror sent ripples of fear through the assembled representatives. "You see," Chen continued, activating a holographic display of her own, "we've been monitoring your communications for some time now. Your species are remarkable. You've created a peaceful, prosperous galactic civilization. But we've noticed something troubling." The display showed Arius Council worlds under attack by space pirates, natural disasters, and hostile alien species. "You're vulnerable," Chen said simply. "Your worlds are beautiful, your people are kind, but when danger strikes, you have few options. We'd like to help with that." "Help?" squeaked Clicktar. "How could Deathworlders possibly help us?" Chen's smile widened. "By doing what we do best, surviving." "You want to what?" Council Leader Morphton's crystalline form flickered with such disbelief that several nearby light-sensitive species instinctively shielded themselves from the strobing patterns. "Demonstrate our capabilities," Captain Chen repeated, with the calm patience of someone explaining simple concepts to children. "We understand your concerns about our species' integration into galactic civilization. Rather than continue debating our theoretical nature, we'd prefer to show you how we might contribute constructively to the Council's ongoing challenges." The Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy that bordered on panic. After 3 hours of increasingly frantic deliberation behind closed doors, they had agreed to Chen's proposal, though mostly because none of them could figure out how to refuse without potentially triggering the wrath of a species that treated Class 12 Deathworlds as character-building experiences. "We've prepared a suitable scenario for evaluation," Ambassador Zexthari announced, her voice tight with barely controlled worry. "The mining colony on Kepler 442b has been experiencing systematic raids by the Skarn pirates for the past 18 months. They've formally requested Council intervention, but our peacekeeping forces are, unfortunately, inadequate for the task at hand. The Skarn were a notorious raider species, not quite civilized enough for Council membership, but far too numerous, well-armed, and strategically dispersed to ignore. Their brutal raids had plagued the outer colonies for decades, draining Council resources and terrorizing civilian populations across 17 sectors. "Perfect operational parameters," Chen said, conferring briefly with her companions in rapid, efficient exchanges that reminded observers of pack hunters coordinating tactics. "My colleague Lieutenant Commander Torres will handle this demonstration personally." The woman with the clearly visible muscle definition stepped forward, her movements carrying the fluid precision of someone who had turned physical violence into an art form. "I'll need access to a small ship and basic supplies. Should take approximately 1 week to resolve the situation permanently." 1 week? Morphton pulsed with confusion so intense his crystalline structure nearly cracked. "Our military analysts estimate it would require a full battle fleet at least 6 months to systematically clear out the Skarn stronghold network." "Different methodological approaches," Torres said, with a casual shrug that somehow made the gesture seem more threatening than reassuring. How many pirates are we discussing? Intelligence reports suggest approximately 2,000 Skarn raiders distributed across 15 heavily armed vessels, Zexthari replied, consulting her tactical displays. Torres paused, running quick calculations with the kind of focused intensity that made prey animals nervous. I'll need to adjust my operational timeline accordingly. 3 days then. The council members exchanged horrified glances that spoke volumes about their collective terror. Either the humans were displaying impossible arrogance, or they possessed capabilities so far beyond galactic norms that conventional military analysis was meaningless. Possibly both. 2 days later, emergency communications flooded council space with reports that defied belief. The entire Skarn pirate fleet had surrendered unconditionally. The reports were fragmented and barely believable. Stories of a single human infiltrating their main vessel, turning their own security systems against them, and somehow convincing the entire raider fleet that resistance was futile. She did what? Ambassador Klicktar demanded, reviewing the reports. According to the Skarn survivors, Zexthari said, her voice hollow, she improvised. Used their own technology, their own tactics, their own weapons against them. But she also talked to them. Talked. She offered them a choice: surrender and face council justice, or continue raiding and face human justice. Apparently, the distinction was significant enough that they chose surrender. When Torres returned to the council chamber, she seemed entirely unruffled by her single-handed defeat of a pirate fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for years. "Mission accomplished," she reported simply. "The Skarn have agreed to relocate to the Outer Rim and transition to legitimate salvage operations." "How?" whispered Morfton. Torres considered the question. "I showed them what humans are capable of when we're trying to be gentle. Then I explained what we're capable of when we're not." The emergency council session had been ongoing for 18 hours. Representatives from across the galaxy debated the human application with increasing desperation. "They're too dangerous," insisted Ambassador Klicktar for the 100th time. "We've seen what one human can do. What happens when they have access to our technology, our trade routes, our colonies? What happens when they don't?" countered Ambassador Grun. "They've demonstrated that they can handle problems we can't even approach. The Skarn pirates alone have cost us millions of credits and losses over the past decade." Council leader Morfton pulsed with exhaustion. "Ambassador Zexthari, present your final analysis." The Vorthen diplomat's tentacles had been coiled tight with stress for days. "Honored Council, the humans represent a paradigm shift in galactic civilization. They are, without question, the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. They turn adversity into advantage. They weaponize everything, including their own emotions, and they possess a level of adaptability that borders on the supernatural." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "However," she continued, "they have also demonstrated restraint, compassion, and a genuine desire for peaceful cooperation. Lieutenant Commander Torres could have eliminated the Skarn entirely, but instead chose to rehabilitate them. Captain Chen has been nothing but respectful in her interactions with the Council, despite the fact that we've been debating her species' right to exist in civilized space." "Your recommendation?" asked Morfton. "I believe we have two choices," Zexthari said slowly. "We can accept human membership in the Council and hope to guide their development along peaceful lines, or we can refuse and hope they respect our decision to maintain isolation." "And if they don't respect our decision?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone present had seen the casual efficiency with which humans solved problems that had stymied galactic civilization for years. Ambassador Trillex spoke up from the merchant section. "Perhaps the question isn't whether we can afford to accept them, but whether we can afford not to. My trade analysis suggests that human innovation could revolutionize galactic commerce. Their manufacturing techniques, their resource extraction methods, their transportation solutions, all far more efficient than our current standards. Because they evolved to make the best use of everything on a death world, Grun added. They've had millions of years to optimize for survival in impossible conditions. The vote, Morfton announced, will be by secret ballot. All in favor of accepting humanity's application for council membership. The counting took 3 hours. When the results were announced, the chamber erupted in chaos. Motion passes, Morfton declared, his crystalline form flickering with what might have been relief or terror. 1,847 votes in favor, 1,193, 70 abstentions. By the smallest margin in council history, Zexari observed. Let's hope, Kliktar muttered, that it wasn't also the last vote in council history. 6 months after humanity's narrow acceptance into the Galactic Council, the galaxy had begun to adapt to its newest and most terrifying members with results that defied every xenosociological prediction ever made. The first sign of transformation came in the form of human consultants appearing throughout council space like some sort of benevolent infestation. Wherever there was a problem deemed impossible, too dangerous, or beyond current technological solutions, humans materialized with approaches that ranged from brilliant to absolutely insane, and somehow, impossibly, they worked. Report from the agricultural crisis on Harvest Prime, Ambassador Zexari announced during the weekly council briefing, her tentacles no longer coiled with anxiety, but rather with what appeared to be bemused resignation. The human agricultural specialist has successfully restored crop yields to 150% of pre-crisis levels. How? Asked Morfton, though he'd learned to simultaneously dread and anticipate the answers to such questions. She introduced carefully selected Earth predators into the ecosystem to establish natural pest control, then used what she called heavy metal music to optimize plant growth rhythms. The local Harvest Prime population is confused but extraordinarily grateful for their record-breaking harvests. Ambassador Kliktar's mandibles clicked nervously, though with less terror than before. And the mining disaster on Titan 7? The human engineer successfully extracted all trapped miners and restored full operational capacity to the facility within 48 hours. His solution involved precisely calculated controlled explosions that our safety regulations would never have permitted, combined with what he termed aggressive structural engineering. Of course it involved explosions, Kliktar muttered, though her tone carried more resignation than horror. But the real shock came from reports flooding in from the Outer Rim territories, where human colonies had begun establishing themselves on worlds that the Council had officially written off as uninhabitable death traps. Worlds with toxic atmospheres, crushing gravity, unstable geology, or radiation levels that would sterilize most known life forms were being transformed into thriving settlements. They're not terraforming in any conventional sense, reported the Xenogeology Committee with barely concealed amazement. They're adapting and improvising. They're building cities inside active volcanic zones for geothermal energy, establishing underwater colonies in crushing oceanic depths, and constructing orbital habitats in asteroid fields while dodging cosmic debris. They're treating environmental hazards as design opportunities rather than obstacles. The economic implications were staggering beyond any previous galactic precedent. Suddenly, the galaxy had access to resources that had been considered permanently unreachable. Human mining operations were extracting rare minerals from the molten cores of gas giants. Human agricultural techniques were producing food in environments that should have been completely sterile. But perhaps most disturbing of all was the effect humans were having on other species throughout the galaxy. I must report an alarming trend, Ambassador Grun announced with what sounded like confused pride. Young people from various council worlds are voluntarily traveling to human colonies. They claim they want to challenge themselves and experience adventure. Adventure? Zexari's tentacles writhed with renewed horror. They're seeking out danger for recreational purposes? It appears to be highly contagious, Grun confirmed. The humans call it inspiring others to reach their potential. Our sociologists are calling it weaponized optimism. The reports continued to flood in. Human doctors were revolutionizing medicine by treating diseases that had been considered incurable. Human engineers were solving architectural problems that had stymied galactic civilization for centuries. Human artists were creating cultural works that somehow made other species feel emotions they didn't know they could experience. "There's something else," Zekvari said quietly. "Our intelligence networks have detected significant changes in pirate activity throughout the galaxy." "Changes?" "Let's hope," Kliktar muttered, "that it wasn't also the last vote in Council history." They're giving up. Entire raider fleets are surrendering or transitioning to legitimate work. When interrogated, they all say the same thing: it's not worth it anymore. What changed? Word is spreading about what humans do to pirates. Not the Council's version of justice, human justice. Apparently, humans have made it clear that attacking innocent civilians is inadvisable. Council leader Morphton's crystalline form dimmed with contemplation. Are we witnessing the end of galactic crime? Or, Kliktar suggested darkly, the beginning of a human-dominated galaxy? 1 year after humanity's integration into the Galactic Council, Ambassador Zekthari stood before the Assembly to deliver the annual assessment report that would reshape galactic civilization's understanding of itself. The chamber was notably different. Several new species had joined the Council, many of them from worlds previously considered too dangerous for colonization, having been inspired by human examples of adaptive survival. "Esteemed Council members," she began, her tentacles now steady with what could only be described as confident amazement, "I present the annual comprehensive review of humanity's transformative impact on galactic civilization." The holographic displays showed transformation on an unprecedented scale that defied every previous model of social evolution. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to persistent pirate activity were now thriving commercial corridors patrolled by human-trained security forces. Worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable death traps were now bustling colonies contributing significantly to galactic GDP. Scientific research that had stagnated for millennia was advancing at breakneck speed thanks to human "what if we try this insane approach" methodologies. The humans have established what they call Deathworld tourism, Zekthari reported with barely concealed astonishment. Council species are paying substantial sums to experience carefully controlled danger under expert human supervision. The psychological effects appear to be remarkably beneficial. Participants report dramatically increased confidence, improved problem-solving capabilities, enhanced resilience, and a greater appreciation for their own previously unknown potential. Ambassador Grun, whose own people had been among the first to embrace human-guided challenges, projected genuine enthusiasm into the chamber's collective consciousness. "The peaceful collective has experienced an unprecedented cultural renaissance. Our young people are exploring art, science, philosophy, and personal development with enthusiasm we haven't seen in generations. The economic data is equally extraordinary," added Ambassador Trillex, his multiple eye stalks practically glowing with merchant satisfaction. "Human innovations have increased overall galactic productivity by 340%. Resource extraction efficiency is up 500%. And somehow, impossibly, environmental damage is down 60% across all sectors." "How is such optimization possible?" asked a representative from the Crystalline Confederation, her harmonic voice resonating with genuine curiosity rather than fear. "Humans optimize instinctively for sustainability," Zekthari explained with academic precision. "On their death world, waste meant death, inefficiency meant extinction. They've applied that survival principle to everything they encounter. But the most significant change was harder to quantify in mere statistics. The galaxy felt fundamentally different, safer somehow, despite being filled with creatures from the most dangerous world ever discovered. The psychological transformation cannot be overstated," Zekthari continued. For the first time in recorded galactic history, Council species are not instinctively afraid of the unknown. When faced with new challenges, instead of seeking extensive committee approval for risk assessment protocols, they ask, "What would a human do?" And what, asked Council Leader Morphton with genuine curiosity, would a human do? According to my extensive observations, they would assess the situation pragmatically, identify the most dangerous viable approach, and then find innovative ways to make it work safely and efficiently. They call it calculated risk-taking with optimized safety margins. Captain Chen, observing from the human delegation section, smiled with quiet satisfaction. Permission to continue doing what we've always done? Explore, learn, grow, and help others do the same. Even if it's dangerous? Chen's smile widened with predatory confidence. Especially if it's dangerous, that's when it's most worthwhile.